Lorraine Colette Peterson was a model who was hired to advertise and promote Sun Maid Raisins. Leroy Payne was the executive who discovered her. He saw her in the backyard of her family home. She was drying her long brown hair, and he was struck by her beauty and thought, this is the woman that can promote our brand. Initially, she was hired to hand out raisins at the Panama Pacific Exposition, which was a giant, World's Fair. And so she went there and did that. Also, they did a promotional stunt where she got in an airplane. They flew over San Francisco and she dropped raisins out of the plane. Which sounds great if you're expecting raisins. If you're not expecting raisins, sounds terrible. Sounds terrifying. The company then commissioned artist Fanny Scaffold to paint a picture of her. This is it. This went on to appear on all the Sun-Maid Raisin packages starting in 1919. In 1974, the company threw a little celebration for Colette. They gave her a plaque thanking her for her years of service as the Sun Maid Girl. She also received $1,700, and in exchange for that, she gave them her original kerchief, and she gave them the painting, which she had kept, the actual oil painting, which was done by Fanny Scaffold. It apparently is the real name, by the way. It's like when it's so big, it needs scaffolding to keep it up. In 1987, in honor of the company's 75th anniversary, they donated her kerchief to the Smithsonian. Now, I got a real gripe with this kind of stuff because I guarantee you can never see this. The Smithsonian has so many items, has an absurd amount of items, and people are always donating more to them. And while that museum is enormous, way bigger than you could imagine, they just don't have enough room to display all this stuff. So anytime you see a documentary about the Smithsonian, they'll tell you, oh yeah, well, for everything you see out here, we have 100 in the back. Well, it's the Sun-Maid bonnet. Nobody ever gets to see it. At least if the company kept it in their headquarters in a case, you can go and, look at that. For her part, Colette continued to do appearances for the company until she died at the age of 90 in 1983.
Here, hold my raisin.
America's favorite raisin.
The California Raisins was a huge promotion. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. They sang Marvin Gaye songs and, they heard it through the grapevine. They were a cultural phenomenon, and they did have a tie-in, of course, with Sun-Maid as a raisin producer. This is an activity book you could get. It's got the Sun Maid Raisin Girl up there, and it's got the California Raisins.
Sun-Maid, America's favorite raisin.
By the way, I mentioned their corporate offices. While they don't have a museum, they do have a very cool visitor center. They have the world's largest box of raisins, which is just a big fake box, but you can get your picture taken with it. They also have a giant wooden cutout of the Sun Maid Raisin Girl. There's an episode of The Simpsons where Marge uses an animated package of raisins that looks very close to Sun-Maid. She needed these specific raisins to make her cake, yet Helen Lovejoy had bought the last batch of them. That packaging is so distinctive. If you see a box that size that's red, you immediately assume raisins. More recently, they've done commercials with a CG version of the Sun-Maid Raisin Girl, and she goes out to Hollywood. These are pretty good commercials. The animation's always with CG animation. Anytime you get 3 years past it, you kind of look at it and go, wow, that's what we were doing 3 years ago. So it does look a bit out of date, but I like these commercials.
Hollywood, entertainment capital of the world. So add our delicious raisins to your healthy diet. And just maybe, you'll become a big Hollywood star.
There was an animated segment on Sesame Street where they had how they made Sun-Maid raisins. They don't say Sun-Maid, and the package is slightly different, but you could tell it's inspired by that Sun-Maid look. Because again, it's just such a distinctive and iconic thing. It's kind of like how Reese's we associate with that color orange. I feel like raisins are now associated with that color red box.
She put them in boxes, called them raisins, and gave them to friends. And the friends gave them to friends so they could eat them later. And they did.
Here's an ad from 1936. They did this whole thing. This is an old lady talking to her, but they also had kids talking to her. And she would just be on the box being like, yep, let me tell you some stuff. And look at how big that box is. Grandma's never going to need to buy anymore. That's it. That's all the raisins Grandma will ever need. I remember you and your wrinkly raisin texture when I had a texture that was less wrinkly and raisiny. If you watch the TV show Friends, you can see Sun-Maid Raisins in the background. You can see them right there in the picture. I don't know if this was a paid advertisement, like product placement, or if this was a case where if we're going to make this look like a real apartment, we got to put real stuff that people recognize, and people certainly recognize the Sun-Maid Raisin package. I always like to show wacky packages. If you don't remember wacky packages, I believe they've come back and they still, have new editions of them. But in the 70s and 80s, they were really big. They predated Garbage Pail Kids, and then the company kind of put all their energy into that. They were stickers, but primarily we collected them like cards. We wouldn't peel them off, because if you peeled them off and stuck them on something, you'd instantly regret it. But they were great, and they did have the Sun-Maid Raisins. Sun-Maid had an official Monopoly game, which is very cool. A lot of companies will do their own Monopoly. So like Spider-Man, they get the Monopoly name on there. But if you see one like this, where it says the name and then Opoly, like if it was Sun-Maid Opoly, no license paid. Monopoly is sort of public domain, so you can make your own version. But they got the legit one. Here's some of the spots on the board. They've got the Sun-Maid headquarters, you've got your vineyard, you've got a tax for using too much irrigation. I'm not a fan of Monopoly. I think it takes too long. I think it's not fun. I think as a board game fan, it's my least favorite board game, and it's the most famous of them all. Here's an old Sun-Maid recipe book. It's got recipes like stewed raisins, raisins and rice. Man, I love this belt buckle. If I'm looking to climb up on the mechanical bull, I'm walking in with my Sun-Maid Raisins belt buckle. Here's like the classier Sun-Maid. This looks like you defeated the Sun-Maid Raisin Girl and took the title. Norman Rockwell did some paintings that Sun-Maid used in their ads, so this is pretty cool. He did multiple, but this one you got like the mom feeding the Sun-Maid raisins to the kid. I have seen tons of pictures of kids and adults dressed as the Sun-Maid Raisin Girl. They've put out a costume guide on Facebook, so you can follow that if you want to do it this October. It's fitting because Sun-Maid raisins are a pretty common Halloween treat. They're on the list of ones that kids are a little disappointed about. It's like the bag of pretzels. It's not as bad as the pennies. The people, you can tell they didn't even think. They just were like, I think I got some pennies upstairs in the drawer. Well, that's going to bring this one to an end. Hope you enjoyed learning about the history of the Sun-Maid Raisin Girl, discovered in her backyard drying her hair. So go out there in the backyard, ladies, with some wet hair. You never know what might come of it. Next thing you know, you might be throwing raisins out of an airplane, donating your hat to the Smithsonian. In a moment, a couple boxes are going to pop up. On this side is going to be the story behind Mr. Clean, the canonical backstory I trace all the way down to his days as a child. I tell you how he learned the art of cleaning. And we find out a lot about the company. I had no idea. In other countries, it's Meister proper. And boy, he's all over the place. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Be back here at 2 o'clock, and I'll see you then.